So, quarantine has been draining, to say the least. It's hard to be creative when you feel trapped, and it's hard to ignore the ever-pressing anxiety of wondering if you'll die or kill someone because you need to buy food. Like a lot of people, I've been spending large chunks of each day watching movies, because now that time has lost all meaning, I'm just trying to kill as much time as possible. Thankfully, this is currently a very accessible time killer, and while there are endless options out there, from the dozens of streaming services that keep popping up every week, from classics to contemporary hits, I find myself coming back again and again to movies of a more simple nature. I'm talking, of course, about the cesspit that lies under the trending tabs, the kind of movies you find when you simply search the word movie on Netflix, because what sane person would search that? Me. I am that sane person, and when I'm with a group of friends or just need something brainless to laugh at, I've rarely been disappointed by terrible movies. So if you're like me and can appreciate some fun trash, I've selected some of my favorite so bad it's good movies to help make your quarantine a little more enjoyable. And I want to be clear, I don't hate any of these movies or wish anything negative on the filmmakers or anything like that. I mean, they're not good, but they've all brought me enjoyment multiple times, and I would still mark that as something of a success. I think bad movies are just as educational as good movies, and in some cases more so, and if you're going to watch some trash, it might as well be fun trash. Also, sobriety is not required for these movies, and in fact, I don't recommend it. I can't, morally. I had to get this one out of the way first because if you haven't seen Cats yet and you're stuck at home all day, there is no excuse to not watch Cats. I became mildly obsessed with this movie when the first trailer dropped and stayed that way through all 4 of my theater viewings, and to this very day. So obsessed that I eventually gathered a group of 60 friends together to buy out a theater, and we had a fantastic time together cheering, laughing, singing, and screaming in collective agony.
Who's ready for Cats?
It just boggles my mind how on a movie of this scale, with this many resources, it seems like every wrong decision was made, resulting in a movie that rides the line of coherence very recklessly. The movie just hurts to look at in general, and I was one of the cursed few who saw the unfinished cut in theaters twice, so I know how bad it's capable of looking, not that I blame the visual effects artists for that. But even in its final form, Cats isn't much better. It's nauseating, it has no idea whether to commit to fantasy or grounded reality, and worst of all, it made Idris Elba unattractive, which I thought was impossible. And if you can find the unfinished cut online through, I don't know, less than legal means, let's say, I'm not endorsing that you watch it that way, but you definitely should. Speaking of horrendous visual effects and general incoherence, Ultraviolet is certainly something. Calling it something is actually the most succinct way I can summarize this movie because I legitimately have no idea what it's about. Even after multiple viewings, something about watching this movie just makes me zone out. There's some sort of vampire disease, and Mila Jovovich is living in a dystopian future, and everything just looks wrong. The real star of this movie is the CGI, which looks remarkably unfinished and rushed in places, despite the movie clearly being filmed to show off those effects first and foremost. And you can see that ambition, you can see stylistically what this movie is going for, but like many so bad it's good hits, that ambition is its greatest downfall, because the right amount of time and talent just wasn't allocated. However, experiencing all of these misfired ideas together is something magical. It almost feels like watching a movie from a different dimension at times. But no matter what dimension you experience it on, Ultraviolet is a fascinating experience. I'm a sucker for an old-fashioned garbage horror movie, and The Bye Bye Man is always the one I suggest first. This movie had a little bit of time as a meme when it came out back in 2017, but it was generally left back there as a typical January horror movie. But there's so much more to it than that. It feels like the screenwriter sat down at his laptop, started writing with a vague idea, and just made stuff up until the document was at feature length, and then they started shooting the next day. The Bye Bye Man himself has this insane mythology that has way too many layers. He has this dog and these coins, and when he's nearby you can hear a train and he can hypnotize you, but sometimes he just doesn't. Characters just kind of meander around, but it's never really clear what any of them are supposed to do, or what the Bye Bye Man's goal is, or how to really stop him, because the movie keeps contradicting itself. Considering the context of when it was released, it's hard to tell if this was a genuine effort to create a new horror icon, or just a cynical way of cashing in on bored teenagers in January. Either way, it's incredibly difficult to make sense of, but it's a hilarious puzzle that you'll have a ton of fun failing to solve. This one's a bit of a throwback, but Congo serves up the very specific brand of extravagant 90s cheese that always works for me. It's actually based on a book by Michael Crichton, but if you thought that was an indication of quality, then I guess you've only seen Jurassic Park. The point is, everything about this movie just feels kind of off. From the unconvincing gorilla suits to the laser guns, it's a very strange, failed attempt at blockbuster filmmaking. Every time you take a moment and notice a new, bizarre detail, you just have more questions. Why is Tim Curry doing a weird Romanian accent? Why does this ape have a glove that lets her talk through sign language? Why is there an evil tribe of killer gorillas? It just builds and builds and builds, and if it felt more tongue-in-cheek or intentionally goofy, it would probably be a cult hit, but it plays everything dead straight, and the crazier it gets, the funnier the experience becomes. If you're not sure about this one, just look up the trailer and watch it. If you felt as immediately intrigued as I did, then this is a movie you'll very much enjoy.
Some will come to it for science.
This is a big deal, Charles. This is a big find.
Some for fortune.
A diamond mine of incredible bounty.
This is my all-time favorite bad movie. I've watched it about 20 times at this point and introduced it to so many friends that don't talk to me anymore. I wonder if there's a connection there. Anyway, this movie feels like a teen rom-com made by aliens. All the pieces are there, but they're executed in such strange ways that they just burn into your brain. And to be fair, it was based on a self-published ebook written by a 15-year-old, and no hate to her, that's an incredible achievement, get that money, but very few people did their best writing at 15. I know that movies don't exactly have a perfect track record when it comes to portraying teenage life realistically, but this movie takes it to a whole new level. It could almost be categorized in the fantasy genre. Despite a running time coming in at just under 2 hours, time and space seem to bend when you watch The Kissing Booth. The pacing is so janky that by the time you think you're at the climax, you're only half an hour in. The way the story unfolds, it almost starts to feel like this movie is making fun of itself, and if you want to view it through a lens of complete irony, you can have a lot of fun. But what makes it even more fun is the knowledge that it's really trying, and with every crazy new character who's introduced, the mythology of this world becomes more compelling. I'm just completely enthralled by this movie. I can't stop watching it, and I will probably cry when I watch the sequel because I'm emotionally invested in these characters to a degree that I've been told is unhealthy. Many of you have probably heard about Swiped already. It had a resurgence in online attention a few months back from commentary channels, but if you've never seen the full movie for yourself, I have to encourage it. Noah Centineo movies are so intriguing to me because they feel simultaneously so tired and like I've seen them 100 times before, and like I'm witnessing something entirely new and not quite of this earth. Along with the technical incompetence that makes this movie look like a bunch of middle schoolers made it, the story makes absolutely no sense, and nobody within it functions even close to how normal humans do or how actual apps do. And that complete disconnect with reality results in constant hilarity, especially when the movie tries to wrap things up into an emotional climax, which is certainly something to behold. This is a movie I can't fully explain, it just has to be witnessed. I've shown it to a few of my friends who also no longer talk to me. Is there a pattern here? And last but certainly not least, we have a gangster epic from the power duo of John Travolta doing a terrible accent and E from Entourage behind the camera. It's gaudy. This movie is so poorly handled and yet so well-meaning that it's kind of adorable. You can see what it's going for the whole time, but its ambitions were clearly higher than the filmmakers could make possible. And with every small failure holding it back from being the kind of prestige biopic it clearly wants to be, it just gets more and more entertaining. The non-linear narrative tries to add complexity but results in confusion, and John Travolta clearly going for an Oscar here just feels kinda sad. But you won't be sad for long, because this movie tries and fails to execute pretty much every trope of every gangster movie out there and falls short on every single one. And if you ever want to get a secondary laugh from it, look into some of the marketing that was released for it after it started bombing in theaters. You'll be blown away.
You fight till you can't fight no more. Never back off, ever.
So there you have it. Terrible, fun, hilarious movies to help kill some time in quarantine. I know they've brought me nothing but joy. But I've been watching a lot of great movies too, and they help even more. Honestly, pretty much the only thing I've been doing consistently is watching movies for the past few weeks, months, whatever it's been. Hopefully you're all staying safe, staying sane, and keeping yourselves busy in this time. Just remember the most important thing. That screenplay you wrote about quarantine is probably very bad. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. Thanks very much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.